What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest has over 30 years of hospitality experience in international operations, capital markets, and strategic development. He has a focus on sustainability as a part of the guest experience. He's worked on projects all over the globe in regions like Asia, the Middle East, and North America. He's the CEO and owner of Olson Kundig, a global architecture and design practice. Hemanshu Parwani, or as his new friends and all people call him, HP. Welcome, HP.
Hey, Diane, it's great to be on your show. Looking forward to an interesting conversation today.
Well, I know it's going to be an interesting conversation because we did speak and we did meet, and I'm really fascinated by some of your hobbies, which I want to get into, but I don't want to get there yet. But I just want to let all the listeners know, I met HP. I was invited to a dinner at Alice that I wasn't expecting to. I just had an open. I just kind of went with the flow. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be there. And we were at this wonderfully amazing dinner that Aggie invited us to. And I don't know, I just met so many great new people. So the moral of the story is when someone asks you to dinner, just say yes, because you never know who you're going to meet. And I'm just really happy to have gotten to know and meet and gotten to know you better, HP. So thank you for being here.
Pleasure, my pleasure. And I mean, that's the best part of dinners or hospitality or Alice is meeting new people. And that's what excites me every day.
Yeah. And I want to start there too, because you already said the H word. So when you think of hospitality and your career spanning all the different facets of it, and having seen from the finance to the design to the operations, like, when it all boils down to you, what does hospitality mean to
you? Hospitality, I would take a step back a little bit. I mean, I grew up, born in India, grew up there, and the cultures in Asia, I would say, where hospitality is next to godliness. I mean, like welcoming someone into a space and how you make them feel is a religion, I mean, in Asia. And that's something that has stayed with me all along when I think about hospitality is how you make someone feel in the space and how you create memories with them.
Having come from all facets of hospitality, whether you're grinding out pro formas to see if this deal is going to work or not, or running a hotel or designing and building a hotel, when you think of that idea of godliness, because I really think I love that because you're really putting it at the highest of levels, right? Mm-hmm. Is there an element of that godliness that ties through all the different facets that you've experienced?
Yes, and I would say I mean, the one core key facet in all of that is how you make a guest or anyone using that space feel. I think if that theme can stay true throughout all aspects, that's where success is with regards to hospitality. I mean, even oftentimes, I would say when you're looking at pro forma, it's easy to lose sight of some of those things when somebody is buried into the deal as to how the deal is getting put together. But sometimes we say we don't even spend enough time at that point thinking the space that the deal we are putting together for the space and how it responds to its surroundings and how the guest will interact and how each component adds to it and it builds on that. So that theme has to stay right from the time someone says, I'm going to acquire this piece of land to have a hospitality product out there. And when you walk that site, that's where the genesis happens there. And I mean, reflecting a little bit, I mean, I'm on the architecture and design practice. It starts there. Like you walk the space and say, Well, we'll create the building and environments, but how will the guest come here, walk, and see the horizon, see the vistas, see the surroundings? If it's an urban thing, how will they feel? I mean, I think that's the essence uh, of everything, all different facets:
Mm.
capital, operator selection, site selection, you name it. And that's a core thing, at least for me personally. What really does it mean for the guest?
Now, when you're looking at a new project, so you have like the clean slate, right? I don't know. For many, that's the most exciting part of a project. For others, it's figuring all the things out as they're midstream, and then others, it's when it's open, and then all points in between. But when you have a clean slate and you're looking at creating something of a hospitality project, are you? How do you want the guest to feel when they're walking into that space? When, like, how do you take the guest's perspective as you're looking at the blank piece of white paper?
Um, I would say, I mean, we humans, I mean, as we experience space, I mean, I think it's in our DNA. Either either that space reminds you of something else, a memory that you had, or you're trying to build a memory from that space that you want to carry it further. And that's the way, I mean, I have usually looked at it. I mean, my partners that are focused on some of the projects and on the design side, that's the way they look at it, which is the memories that one experiences in that space, something that they may have experienced in another in the past life or whatnot, and or new memories that they create. We humans always kind of congregate around other humans' emotions, experiences. So it's that the memories, the emotions is the core thread that I focus on, that I think about, as well as the whole practice with regards to the space. Blank canvas. What do we want? What memories would somebody take from here?
Mm. Um, when did you find that you had this passion for hospitality?
Oh wow. I would say uh, growing up, I mean, I was always fascinated by, as to, you would go to a place and you engage with, let's say, the people that are working in that space. That, I mean, as a youngster, I recall going with my parents to a place, and I'll share another anecdote later on in the conversation. But I went to a place with my parents in India, in northern part of India, and two experiences. One where I walked into a space and the staff spoke to me as if I belonged in that space. I didn't need a adult supervision, but more so as, hey, you mean something for us. You are a guest, and I want to address you that way, as in respect you, and the pride they had in sharing their space with me as an individual. And so that's where, I mean, I could see that, and I could say, wow, that's the pride of sharing the space, and or making someone feel as if they are welcome, they belong there. That's where that passion started. And early part of my career was um, uh, focused in India with regards to hospitality operations, and or early on feasibility and conceptualizing projects. And that's where the whole want and a passion became more of a reality for me.
And then, so you learned all of this, and you kind of earned your stripes, so to speak, in India. And then when did you come to the US to take these skills and try out all of these new endeavors that you have?
Um, I've, I mean, it's been over 30 years I've been in the US now. And oftentimes when we talk hospitality, uh, we we often focus on brands, resorts, hotels, etc. But for me, hospitality is a much, much, much broader term. Hospitality presents itself in even public infrastructure, transportation projects. Early part of my career, I was working after my first stint with hospitality. I was on major transportation projects in terms of metro systems and subways, and thinking about the stations for the train systems. Even there, their hospitality presents itself in multiple places. Even the carriages that are used for metro systems, there is an element of hospitality even there, which often folks don't realize. We get busy in our space, we take the subway and we off from one place to the other. There's hospitality there too. How you engage in that space, how you're present, how others around you are present. So, hospitality for me is a much broader term beyond just brands and operators and F&B spaces.
I'm always amazed at how people don't realize. I'm often amazed that I don't realize how people don't understand that hospitality touches everything, right? Because it is that base core human interaction. And it's, I think, what makes us different in the sense that we're welcoming people into our space, our home, just outside into the environment that we're around. And it weaves through everything that we do. So I just think that, and I think that's kind of why the popularity of this podcast has grown so much, because hospitality does touch everything and we can all learn from it because it's really what makes us human. I'm also intrigued by you, HP, because as much as you're always thinking about how the guest should feel, right, and putting the guest first at that level of godliness, you put yourself in very uncomfortable positions with your mountaineering. And I for those of you who don't know, HP has done all 7 summits, and you're working on more. So he's climbed the tallest peaks, mountain peaks in each of the continents and more. So you're very passionate about that. But I'm curious if putting yourself through those extreme conditions and experiences informs your idea or makes you appreciate hospitality more.
It does. In fact, I wanted to share a couple of anecdotes or experiences. Talking of hospitality, we were working with a hospital system, healthcare, and hospitality presents, and they were really keen to see what does it mean for the patient care. And we did a concept and a study with them in terms of creating a space that, let's say, the hospitality designers created, but with the intent for the patient care. And they did some really interesting research and studies that patients that were kept in those spaces, which were more thoughtfully designed with thoughts around how lighting comes in, what are the vistas or the views that a patient can see, their research showed that the patients recover faster in those spaces when there is a thought put into even a sterile space. Hospitals, as we know, or healthcare, it becomes very sterile. And but if done thoughtfully, even the patients recovered much quicker. So that was the one experience I wanted to share. The other, you talked about climbing and extreme. Again, hospitality presents itself in all aspects, all spaces. I've climbed, and I think we were talking earlier, I had shared, having had meals and all over the world, from a hole in a wall to some Michelin stars. To date, my best meal ever, I say this every time, has been a meal that I had with the gauchos while climbing in Argentina. On a mountainside, the freshest possible meat or whatever, cooked basic. But, to me, that was something that has stayed with me, for over a decade plus, where I say, that's the best meal I had, because they made me feel one of them. They were sharing what they had, and I didn't have to be someone to be in that space. I had to be me. I was climbing, and that's one of my best experiences of hospitality, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think back, like if someone said, like, what's the best beer you've ever had or something like that? It's usually it's after some incredibly strenuous exercise or hike up a mountain. I'm not mountaineering, but like a very long hike, and then you get back to wherever you're going. And that beer, I don't care what it is, it's just like it's life right there. You're around with the people that you
Mhm.
just struggled with,
Yeah,
and it could be a Miller High Life for all I care. It doesn't matter, but it's what's at the end of that journey as you're kind of like revitalizing yourself and sharing the stories of the things that you saw along your way.
it's interesting that you mentioned this beer thing, and this has actually happened to me. I was climbing Denali in Alaska, and I mean, to date, I say that's my most toughest climb that I've ever taken, and
Wow.
it was 3 weeks of just plain suffering. I mean, you walk in assuming there will be suffering, and then you amplify it times 5, 10, whatever. At the end of it, uh, I mean, unbeknownst to me, the guide and the outfitter that I was climbing with, they had buried a six pack in the glacier where we were dropped off, and we do this climb. 3 weeks later, we come back to our pickup place on the glacier. We are all super tired, haven't showered for 3 weeks. We are we have lost a ton of weight. Uh, and we come there and he just digs it out of the ground, literally from the ice. And he's like, here's beer. And again, that's the beer I remember the most. I don't remember
Oh
what it
my God.
was, but the fact that after suffering, pain, tired, exhaustion, you come back and there's this beer.
It's interesting. You can think of that's such a reward for you after suffering for 3 weeks. And I'm curious whether the guide or the outfitter, whoever buried it in the glacier, was that a motivation for them to get like, was that their North Star to get all the way up and then come back? They knew they were going to get it. It was a surprise for you. But I
Yeah.
wonder if that was like, okay, this is the end. This is the end result. This is the ultimate goal.
Well, I mean, this was in their way of a little bit of a celebration and camaraderie. I mean, I think
Mm.
it's all about that. And uh, I mean, I've said this in the past as well that when I'm climbing, and oftentimes I don't know the other climbers before I show up for the climb, and we all get united by a common purpose, and and build instant trust the moment we show up, literally because we are clipped on the rope, and there is a bond or a trust that's there. That hey, if I were to fall, you who was next on the rope with me will be saving me, and vice versa.
Mm.
And but it's that common purpose. And uh, given we are talking about hospitality, and we've heard the luminaires of hospitality, I know Bill Marriott has said that too. It's the purpose. I mean, and keeping it simple has always been something that has resonated with me. I mean, and have always been fascinated when I've heard in the past Bill say, or in his writings, we are innkeepers. I mean, and or I mean, irrespective, it's a multi-billion corporation, etc. But the ethos of being innkeepers to take care of people, and as innkeepers, it was not just the guest, but also the people that worked at the inns,
Mm.
and taking care of both of that was important to him. And that's the ethos of hospitality. It's not just the guests, the people that are taking care of the guests. You take care of them as well,
Mm.
because that's where that common purpose is so important as we engage hospitality in its broadest sense.
I'm so glad you brought up Mr. Marriott. I actually sat behind him at the ribbon cutting of Howard University's hospitality school. I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years ago. I don't
Hmm.
remember exactly. Um, and there was a big ribbon cutting. He was literally like right in front of me, but I didn't say anything or introduce myself. I just sat there because it was such an incredible experience to just be in that room. 3 weeks ago, I was at a meetup for Host up in San Francisco for the GM meeting, and Mr. Marriott was there. and I walked in. After the day of speakers, we went up and there was this kind of reception at the top of the Hyatt in San Francisco, and I shook the hands of. There were 3 people greeting us, and then I was like, I walked out. I was like, wait, that was Mr. Marriott. And then I went back. I was like, I had the pleasure of sitting behind you. I've never actually gotten to meet you, but I just want to say you just made my day, my week, my month, my year. It's so incredible to meet you. And what I appreciated the most, and he was just very gracious and everything you would expect him to be. But what I loved about him was the next day he got up as the chairman of Host and gave a keynote. And the stories he would tell about going to Harvard Business School, then going to work at his hot shops, the family business before Marriott. And he would call his hot shot buddies at Harvard, graduated Harvard Business School. They were trading stocks, making a lot of money. And they're like, hey, what did you do? He's like, I got to cook 200 meals today because the line cook didn't show up or something like that.
Right.
And I think the way he said it wasn't like I had to. It was like, I got to. I get to. It was like an honor that he got to do this and also learn a business from the ground up, unlike all the other MBAs that he had worked with. So I just wanted to share that with you and everyone because it was just so wonderful to be able to experience that.
Oh, that absolutely. I mean, and there are so many luminaires that we could talk about for hours in hospitality. I mean, path breaking, and each one, I think, kind of redefining, re-envisioning hospitality, whether it's Bill Marriott, Ian Schrager, Adrian Zecha. I mean, each one has defined and redefined hospitality,
and scaled it to unfathomable heights. It's unbelievable how they were able to do that. I want to go back to the Denali experience. So the hardest experience or most challenging experience in your mountaineering life. I'm curious that when you're up over 18,000 feet to 20 plus, and you have to camp up, you sleep that high, correct?
Yeah.
How, in that extreme situation, how do you find comfort in sleep? Or is it just sheer exhaustion? Is there anything in that intense sleep, lack of oxygen, really, really high up that gets you through?
Well, there are a couple of things. Yes, there is an element of sheer exhaustion, but at the same time, given that there is much lesser oxygen at that altitude or even higher, sleep becomes a challenge. And your heart rate goes through erratic patterns, rhythms, etc. And you find comfort. I think sleep happens. It'll happen. I mean, it's a physiological phenomena, I would say, with regards to sleep at that altitude. Exhaustion would kick in. You will sleep for some time, then you'll stay awake, and then you just go through this cycle. And oftentimes the climbers would joke like, I got 2 solid hours of sleep, and that's a victory because you could sleep for 2 hours. And then you go through that process. What gets you through is you are in such an intense state of focus, and it's a little bit of a meditative state, I would say. What gives you more comfort and peace is, hey, I'm doing the best that I could possibly do. I've trained for this. I'm showing up with intent, and I'm staying focused, and I'll do kind of one step in front of the other, and I'll go through the process of climbing. And the one feeling that I always had, I mean, climbing mountain, and I say all mountains are difficult. There is no easy mountain. I mean, it's a misnomer to say it's an easy mountain just because one could say, oh, I could hike up. And I say, people have died at 5,000 feet. So there is no easy mountain. Mountain itself is you have to go through a physical and a mental exertion. And so you get comfort by the fact that you've done the best that you could do, and I am here to enjoy the journey.
Mm.
The folks that fixate more on the summit, etc., and what's next, that's where, I mean, it creates more anxiousness, I would say, for anyone. And well, we have to remember that we are dealing with an unknown. I mean, sure, many people have climbed that, but every day, every hour, it's different circumstances.
Mm. I appreciate so much the words that you just said about showing up with intent. So you're training, you're showing up with intent. It's actually something I struggle with. I show up with intent in many, many things that I do. I would say 75+% of the things I do, but oftentimes I'm just going through the motions of just living life. But I find when I take that pause and do things with intention, it's a much more impactful experience for myself and those that I'm around.
Mm-hmm.
As an entrepreneur and leader within our industry, how do you take that idea of showing up with intent that you've learned from mountaineering and apply it to other aspects of business, life, family, personal? Like, how do you take intent to heart?
I mean, the best way I have kind of managed that, handled that, is it's being about being true to yourself. I mean, like you just said, sometimes you can go through motions, but if you dig down deeper, are you being true to yourself? And that's where the intent comes in for me personally, which is if I'm going to do anything, be it as simple as walking on a treadmill at home, if I'm not doing that with intent, then why am I doing it?
Mm.
And that's a question that I ask myself every day in everything that I do, and I ask my kids as well. And also, I may be spending not as much time with my kids or with my family, given so many things, but I want to make them count. I mean, I want to make every moment count. And success and failures for me are not defined by, oh, if I had to reach a summit, that's a success. For me, the success is how I participated in that, let's say if it's a climb, and what do I take away from it? That's where success and failure is. If I do not take anything away, then to me, that's a failure. But
I think it was about 10 years ago. I first, I love how you shared showing up with your family with intent. I remember when we were living in New York City, the elevator opened up into our apartment. And more often than not, I'd be walking home from work. I'd be on the phone. I'd walk into the apartment. There, Alexa and 3 kids and running around, and I'd be on the phone. And I don't know what, I just didn't know any better. And then a friend of mine, a guy named Brian, he's like, you know what you should do? When you get home, before that, as you get into the elevator, put your phone down. Obviously, you think, I don't know why I didn't know that. And just like, as if you're walking in to do a presentation or walking into a meeting, just take a deep breath and put yourself into that mindset and be intentional about it. And I think it really changed the way I approached coming home. And it's that idea of intention. And it taught me so much. And I appreciate how you've learned that idea of intention through climbing and how you approach many things. But just taking that pause and thinking, like, why am I doing this? And then approaching whatever I'm doing with that intention is game changing. And I really wish I could do it in everything, but I guess we're not perfect.
We're not perfect. And here's a small tidbit that I would share. I mean, I tend to work out in the mornings, early mornings, but my intent starts the night before. And what I do is I keep my gym shoes next to my bed, so that's the intent for me, that morning when I wake up, that I put on my shoes and that I'm going to go and work out. So for me, the intent started the night before.
Exactly. Or getting into the elevator.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just it's just planning.
Mhm.
When you think of this idea of intention, because I want to pull on that thread a little bit more, as you've grown your company, um, and where do you have offices now?
We are in Seattle, New York, and another office should be coming online in the next 3 weeks. So we are waiting to reveal that.
Oh, okay. So there's some new exciting news coming out. But
Right.
as you think about growing your business and having new offices, new people, how do you and your leadership team approach that onboarding of bringing on new offices with intention?
The one thing that we often say, and I mean, this is something that I truly believe in, that we as a firm, and that's my mantra as well. Again, this goes back to the intent. We do not want to grow for the sake of growth. And I often say, we will, as a firm, be the size that we need to be to do the work that inspires us, that we aspire for. So our guiding light is the kind of projects that we would love to work on, we aspire to work on, or the project that will inspire us, will challenge us, will force us to do things creatively. And that's why, I mean, growth is not something that we are chasing. We are chasing that aspirational, meaningful work in design.
Mm.
And that parlays with that whole intent. Our intent is the kind of work. The intent is just not the growth. So it's a different lens of applying. It's a different way of applying lens to, I mean, whether it's growth or the size, conversations that often happen.
And how do you know when a project is done? Do you because sometimes you can approach a project because it's a nice new shiny object as something that will inspire the team, the client, the community. But how do you, at the end of the project, do you go back and reevaluate? Okay, we're an after action for internally, like were we on the mark? Did we accomplish those higher order goals
Mm-hmm.
of inspiration? Um, and if not, do you recalibrate for searching for the next project or opening the next office?
Absolutely. I mean, and this is one thing, I mean, especially in Seattle, what we try and do is we have our annual summer party, and we'll try and go back to one of the projects that we had designed and hold our event there. I mean, again, experiencing it in a different way, that space that we set out to design that was built. There are folks that are using it, and again, as another tidbit for this year, for example, we had done a church here in Seattle, and we are holding, I mean, our event in that. I mean, they have a space, and they were gracious enough to allow us to use that. Again, it's using that space and experiencing it, and having, let's say, 300 critical eyes saying, this is what you could have done better.
Mm. Yeah, I have doing furniture, supplying furniture to hotels. I remember early in my career, when I was buying furniture for hotels, I really loved this armoire that I was doing. And one of my bosses was like, I was like, can I just order an extra one and I'll just come pick it up and drive it up to where I live? And then one of my bosses was like, the project is going, it's early in the project, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Mhm.
And the project turned out to be a huge nightmare. And I was like, and he said, I'm so glad he told me that, because if I had gotten that and put it in my apartment, I would have been reminded of that terrible project for as long as I had that piece of furniture. But I'm just happy that you are able to, I don't know, experience these spaces that you've built, but also see the positive and the negative and
Absolutely.
use that to go forward.
And again, just thinking, I mean, hospitality design, I mean, I would say it's a really, really small world. I mean,
Mhm.
we often know folks, colleagues that we have either work alongside or they're our clients, etc. I mean, that happens so often. And in fact, I was traveling last summer in Europe, and a couple of weeks prior to that, I was on a panel with one of the uh, furniture manufacturers, and I was sharing them, "Hey, I'm going there," and he's like, "Oh, we did the all the furnishings, etc., was built by us. I'm like, oh, that's great. And I go there, I see something, I take a picture and send it to him, like something that you may want to think about. And he was so gracious. And the brand was like, I mean, they had just opened this property, literally like 2 months, not even 2 months. And the whole idea for me sharing this was that for me, it's all about helping people. I mean, like we make each one of us better by communicating. There's enough work for everyone, I would say. So if you can connect people, it's about connections, building the community between hospitality, design. Really, really small world.
Yeah. I'm glad you're bringing that up, because one of the things that I find in doing this podcast, we just finished 150 episodes. And one of the things that bugs the shit out of me, pardon my French, is I get such great information from the people I'm talking to, and the people who are listening to our conversation are going to learn and be impacted in this conversation we're having. But then I struggle because it just ends. So I've been experimenting. I'm not like a big fan of newsletters, and I don't know if it'll turn into a bigger event or something, but my one stepping stone into whatever this community of guests that I've had here is, I'm just going to start with a newsletter to show who the most recent guest is, but then also I'm calling it the Friday Five. So it's who's the most recent guest. Oh, you just check this out. Then some learning from the past. So I'll find like there's so many good nuggets of the guests that I have that I can share, because again, it's about community, like you said. And also I love shortening other people's journeys. So it's like something that inspired me or impacted me, I want to just focus right into that. At 35 minutes and 26 seconds, here's the link. Just listen to what this person said about time and recipes and cooking, or whatever it could be. Then it's an inspirational photo or picture that I saw, and then upcoming events, so that we can all get together and perhaps our paths will cross in person. So I'm struggling. The newsletter is the first step in me trying to figure out how I get this group of 151 or two, you included, to continue the conversation and share the mutual learning. Because if we don't learn from the past, we're just condemned to repeat it. And it's also the definition of insanity. But I like to look at it as the more positive thing, where it can help us be more intentional about everything that we're trying to do.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. I mean, that's the way I feel as well. I mean, there is so much to learn. And I mean, I often joke at our office that every day that I walk into my office, it may sound very cliched, I would say, but I just feel like it's that first day of walking into a space or work. And there is so much creativity, so much energy. I mean, so many ideas that, I mean, come through. And I just feel like a sponge. I mean, I could listen to anyone and everyone talk about anything. And because you never know. I mean, at least for me, I mean, there is so much growing, learning to do by just talking to people. And I mean, this is a great example. You and I met at a dinner, and we sat probably not even next to each other. Somebody was in between, but like, and then we started talking, and then again, it's learning. I mean, like every day, it was meeting those people. I was like, I'm always blown away that there is so much knowledge, so much enthusiasm with regards to sharing and helping each other. I mean, and all you need to do is be patient to listen and not come from a place that I am the know-it-all, because I think that's the biggest roadblock to learning, I would say.
Totally. I actually just went on a retreat with my family and a couple other families last week or week and a half ago. And one of the guides or facilitators that were there, he said recently, I was talking to him, he didn't say it there, but he said, look, you can go through life thinking that all these things happen to us, the good, the bad, but actually they're all happening for us, right? It's how we're approaching and listening and being open to all of the new learnings that are there through all of the good and the bad. And I guess that's why we kind of clicked, because I'm saying you and I,
absolutely.
It's that same kind of mentality and shared learning, as we're all on these paths of growth, and not growth for the sake of growth. It's growth for the sake of of learning and inspiration and impact. Yeah.
And that reminds me, I mean, I believe of this individual, a hotelier, Bashar. I believe Bashar has been, I don't know if he has been on your Bashar
He was
Wali.
guest number one, numero
Guest
uno.
number one. Okay. I mean, I see him so often. Again, a very generous person. And I love the fact that he says, I've never stayed in the same hotel twice, probably twice in his life. I mean,
Yeah.
and that inspires me. I mean, I
Mm.
talk to him, he's generous. He's a straight shooter, gives a lot of feedback. And I'm like, awesome. I mean, it's so much about connecting and sharing.
Yes. As you look forward and think about intention and the exciting new news, which I didn't realize that you're opening a new office in a location to be disclosed at a later point. What's exciting you most as you're looking out there, business, personal, family, whatever category you want to talk about? What's exciting you most as you look out into the future?
On a personal level, what's exciting me is I'm looking to do a climb and do an expedition towards the end of the year. So I've started training for that. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to.
What continent?
It'll be Antarctica.
Oh boy, great. That's amazing. So I'll have you know, when I was in 6th or 7th grade, I was in the National Geographic Spelling Bee or Geography Bee in my school, and it was me and someone else in the finals, and then we would have gone on to this New Jersey State Geography Bee,
Right.
and they asked me what the biggest desert was in the world.
It's Antarctica.
Yeah, I said fucking Sahara. And he got it right. And he went on to New Jersey, but I will never forget that Antarctica. But that's really exciting. Thank you for letting me share that. Okay, so Antarctica. So that's really amazing.
Yeah. And on a work level, there is so much exciting work that we are doing. I mean, again, with regards to whether it's hospitality or sustainability, commercial. I mean, sustainability is a theme that's more and more in our work that we are doing across all different market sectors, geographies, and whatnot. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. And seeing as to what I feel is personally, I mean, again, this is more at a personal level, which is we've got to take care of this planet. I mean, there's 7+ billion of us. And if we cannot fix it, there is no one else coming to fix it. So it's a collective responsibility that we should all take on with intent. Again, that intent is key. I've been on many panels talking sustainability. And again, for me, I want to add something to that. I mean, where we are, sustainability, I would say it should be affordable sustainability and not just sustainability. We often come from places of we're going to do all of this complex structures, etc., and sustainability often gets either value engineered out or it's too expensive, etc. And I was having this conversation, I don't know, with one of my friends, and I said, look at the basis. Look at the villages in Asia or Africa. They've got sustainability better figured out than some of the more developed processes because it's their need. It's not something they're saying, oh, it's good for the planet. It's their need. If their sustainability for sustenance is kind of that's their a North Star because they need it. And how do we make that happen with everything that we do? I mean, where it's a need for all of us for sustenance.
Looking at it from an architectural and design perspective with sustainability in the built environment, what do you think the biggest mover is in trying to create or adaptively reuse new or existing buildings? How do you see that? How are you approaching that to have the largest impact? Because I realize that there's small impacts everyone can take, but there's also big ones. And I'm trying to think about, from a development perspective, what do you see as the biggest mover?
I would say the biggest, and again, going back to my previous comment about affordable sustainability, it's important. The biggest mover is how projects are sited and aligning the vision with what the place can sustain
Mm,
and support. I think that's the key thing. And when I say that, as to how we orient the space, how much of an impact you want to have on the land on which it is suited, and kind of leveraging the surroundings versus fighting the surroundings. And
mm,
and we often, well, not often, but we are seeing some projects where we would say, "What were you thinking?" And putting something like this in this location where
mm,
we're constantly fighting the elements, the nature that's there. If you leverage that, that's where the affordable aspect of sustainability comes in. How you
mm.
site the buildings, the choice of materials, learning from what's around that site. I mean, because that that has been sustainable, if not without human intervention. And how do we learn from that and use that? The one
No,
thing, I mean, again, going back to the theme that we've had in this conversation about intent and having that intentionality with regards to sustainability is key. And we are seeing more and more brands uh, and capital funds that are kind of aligned on that vision with
mm.
regards to sustainability is their North Star as they think about projects.
I think also what's interesting there, as far as capital too, if sustainability is part of your North Star and you can measure it and show it, it actually, and it's starting to, and hopefully it will do more, lower the cost of capital, um,
Yeah.
and increase returns. And
And
I think that's actually really exciting.
And I would also add that oftentimes when we talk about sustainability, we have probably one lens to look at it, which is in the context of choice of materials and or recycling uh, stuff. That is one lens. I mean, there is cultural sustainability, there is economic
Mm.
sustainability. I mean, I was talking to a group in Singapore last year, and I mean, my conversation was around taking a step beyond sustainability, which was more about regenerative, as in
Mm.
giving more back than taking from the site, from the people, giving more back into the communities. Uh, and how do we create that four different pillars of sustainability and apply all of those different lenses?
How do we?
Oh, how do we? Great question. Uh, it requires uh, will of the let's say the owners, developers, will of um, the government or the municipalities, and this thing intent by the people in and around that sites or locations, and uh, it's I would say it's the entire ecosystem has to think on all those four different pillars.
So it's the will of the developer, the will of the government, the will of the community, and then the whole community, or the environment around where the project is situated.
Yes.
And those are the four pillars. And trying to get alignment there and get all that to happen, I think that I think that's exciting too, because I am seeing that happen more and more. But it's still a slow rush. But the current is increasing, and I think it's very reassuring. As you were talking about affordable sustainability, within the past couple of weeks, I also just saw I who Barry Sternlicht is like a
Mhm.
visionary, incredible human for our
Yeah.
industry, and it's so amazing. I recently saw a sizzle reel of one hotels, and sustainability is like woven deeply into one hotels.
Mhm.
And then and the projects that they showed that are open and the renderings of the future ones, it's mind blowing. I mean, it's so incredible and cool and unique and new. But I was thinking after I saw it, I was like, when I first encountered him, he was developing W hotels way back in the day, and that was approach. It was so exciting as someone who was just entering the workforce and leaving college, to other people who've already they're grown ups and they're coming in to have this kind of fun experience. It was approachable by all different economics, right?
Right.
Whether you're going to the bar or staying there, it was a really incredible, pivotal moment within our industry. When I saw this sizzle reel of one hotels, I was so struck by how incredible it looked, but I was also like, this is not approachable by regular humans. All those people that found how exciting W was from an exciting hospitality experience. It's luxury, but I'm like, how do you take what he's creating there and have it be more approachable for everyone? Because I do think hospitality, more than any other asset class, has the ability to have a halo effect on, if you're doing sustainability the right way, you can actually have all those guests come in, educate and inspire them if they're open to it. And then they go on and then they're, I don't know, putting solar panels on their house, or
Yeah.
I don't know, buying a hybrid car, or it can help inform their decisions as they go out into their daily lives. But I found it, as incredible as One Hotels is, I just found it very unapproachable. And Barry, if you're listening, I do want you on here and we can talk about it because you're amazing. But I don't know, that I just walked away with that feeling.
Well, I mean, again, I was recently seeing, in fact, I don't know if you'll be there, Dan, at HD in next week, I want to say.
I will be there, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there as well. I mean, we should definitely try and meet. But I'm on one of the panels, and one of my co-panelists is a GM for the first carbon positive hospitality product that's coming to the market soon. And I'm looking forward to that conversation because there is intent in design, there's intent in operations, and there is intent in as to how the capital structure and all of those things that have happened. And there is intent around engaging with the community. And I'm super keen to pick brains like that, where all the four pillars came together to create something which is regenerative, which likely is affordable. I mean, for a product to be out there.
What project is it?
It's a hotel called Populus.
Oh, cool. I have to learn about that. Okay, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that session. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm seeing more and more that are happening. I haven't heard about a carbon positive project yet, but I also am not paying attention to 100 of everything going on, but I'm very intrigued and I want to learn about that.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that conversation as well, because I mean, a lot of things have come together. I mean, and I'm looking forward to their operating philosophy. And in fact, that also reminds me of another visionary luminaire, Sonu Shivdasani. I mean, his offering in Maldives. I mean, again, it's, I mean, getting to Maldives is not really as easy or sustainable in my view, but I mean, given where its location, but there is the right intent with regards to property, at least his properties in the region, where it comes from a place of hospitality. When I say godliness, I mean, you feel that. I mean, when you walk into the space, you see the people, you talk to them, there's a human connection. And as to how that group, or they take care of the employees in terms of not just sustenance or housing, but as to kind of the next generation for their staff, etc. So it's a broader approach at that's one of the pillars, I mean, with regards to sustainability, which is again the cultural aspect of kind of learning from the cultures and giving back to the cultures as well.
Yeah, I think that on the sustainability front, I do feel that more from small items to larger items like site selection, I do think there is a breakthrough that's happening. And I'm just excited to see it and also be a part of it. And like, for instance, Bermanfalk, a company that I'm very involved with, they just recently made an announcement, and they're doing it. They're not using EPS foam in packaging the case goods for guest rooms. There was no other way to package things, because everything is always different. It's all custom. But
right.
we're like, how can we change? What can we do that's different if we are measuring everything? What's the lowest hanging fruit? And it's packaging. But it's from those small little choices to the larger choices. I think in aggregate, it all makes a tremendous difference. So I'm glad that that's exciting you, and you're seeing that and approaching that with intent as well.
And I think every small step makes a difference. I mean, given the number of folks, and it's also creating, I would say, changing the behavior pattern. I mean, somehow we came out of, I mean, centuries ago with regards to sustainability being part of everything that we did, to over consumerism, where everything had to be use and throw, and then to adaptive reuse. So I think we are going almost, I would love to say a full circle. We are not there yet, but as hospitality brands or spaces kind of factor that into the DNA. I mean, operations is a really critical long-term thing where sustainability gets to play a significant part. And that's important. Operations includes people as to how spaces are run. And again, behavior change is what's going to drive sustainability and a regenerative process with regards to operations, hospitality.
I agree. And I think that the flywheel, I think, was where you were going with that. It's like it's being built. So we have momentum. And inertia has broken, and now there's momentum. HP, if you look back at the time when you first discovered the love of hospitality, when you were a child in India with your parents at that hotel, if the HP I'm talking to now, who's built companies, had all these different experiences within the hospitality industry, climbing, all the stresses and extremes that you put yourself through in your life, approaching everything with intent, what advice do you have for your younger self?
And I think a lot of that comes from my climbing passion. I mean, I use two terms in my lexicon, at least internally or even externally, when talking to folks. One is find your Everest. I've always said that, and it could mean anything in your day-to-day. Find your Everest. And the second thing I say is channel your passion into compassion. And I would say I would have given that find your Everest advice to a younger myself, I mean, a long time ago. I mean, again, like you pointed out, sometimes you get into the way of life and things just happen to you instead of you finding your Everest and being intentional about it.
And having it happen for you. I also think I love that. I also think something that many people forget is, okay, if they have their Everest and they climb their Everest, there's always another mountain ahead.
Yes.
Right? So we can never rest on completing the Everest. We always have to be thinking of what the next Everest is. And I love channeling passion. Or compassion into, no,
channeling your passion into compassion.
Passion into compassion. Yeah, because then the compassion is you're giving, not only it's your passion that's feeding you, if you can find it and then help others with your passion, that's checking all the boxes. That's amazing.
And one quote, it's not mine, it's by a very renowned climber, Ed Viesturs, the first American to do the all 14 8,000 meter peaks without oxygen. And his quote, which is in his book, is going up is optional, coming down is mandatory.
Yeah, true. You always got to get down one way or the other.
Yes. And to your point about, sure, you do your Everest, but what's next? There's another mountain. That's why I say climbing, and like he says, climbing up is optional, coming down mandatory.
HP, I've enjoyed this conversation so much, and also just for helping me think more about improving my 75% of intentionality to get it north of 80. Again, these conversations are great for everyone else, but I get so much out of them as well, because now my mind is racing about how I can turn up the volume on my intentionality about everything. So I thank you and I appreciate you. And if our listeners wanted to hear or learn more about you or Olson Kundig, how can they find you?
They can find me and the firm either through website. We can have the details, or through LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on that. Yeah, I mean, those are the primary channels: email, LinkedIn, and website.
Perfect.
That would be the best way to. I mean, if somebody wants to reach out, again, like I said in my in our conversation, it's all about connecting with one another and helping. If I can help anyone, I am more than open to listening from folks and or learning from them. It's vice versa. I mean, you give something, you get. I mean, every conversation becomes so much more meaningful. Yeah, I want to thank you for inviting me on this. I mean, like some of the folks that we just mentioned who've been on your podcast, I feel really privileged and honored to be here. And it was a great conversation. I loved every bit of it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at HD.
Yes, as soon as I hit stop record, we're going to talk about where it is. We're going to meet up. So I'm excited about that. And also, not only thank you, I want to thank Aggie from Lair coming and inviting us to that dinner, because that was just incredible and such a great place. And at a very busy conference, we were able to just I just felt like we were just able to slow down and chill out. And it was just so great. So thank you.
Yeah.
Aggie.
I mean, likewise, thank you to Aggie. I mean, I've known her for many years, and it's a small world.
Yes. And thank you to our listeners. I know that we've grown just by word of mouth and some promotion on LinkedIn that I've just all done by myself. But check out the newsletter, sign up. It's Defining Hospitality. I'll put it in there as well. And without you, we wouldn't be growing. And there's so many great nuggets that come from all of these podcasts. So I'm going to do my best to repurpose a lot of that really good content into small bite-sized bits so that y'all can shorten your journeys and find your Everest and turn your passion into compassion and be more intentional about everything. See, HP, now we're going to have to write a book. But thank you all. Thank you, everyone. This has been wonderful. We'll catch you next time.